Afternoon, everybody. Now, in continuing discussing the Treaty of Versailles, we're going to be discussing in this segment how it actually affected Germany itself, the German people, and particularly the German army. Now, what had been going on was as far back as August, Ludendorff and Hindenburg pretty much knew that after the failed offensives of the spring and summer, that Germany no longer really had offensive capability. They could no longer win the war that way. They could defend themselves, but offensive capability was pretty much wasted. All they could do was just wait against the new attacks that were coming against them. And so they had to figure out some way to make terms and to have something favorable to Germany. Meanwhile, the politicians were wanting to put out feelers toward the West, particularly to President Wilson, to see about making peace based on his 14 points, where in a nutshell, everything would be leveled out simply, everyone would be okay, there'd be no reparations, everybody would go home, everyone would just rebuild on their own, everything would be fine. It's basically what Germany was hoping for in this. But needless to say, their German delegation was not even given the chance to treat in the situation. It can be truly said that the delegation of Germany, when they were at in the Foch's rail car, could truly be said that they signed that treaty at gunpoint. That's pretty much what they had to do. It's either you either do it or we're going to press into Germany and keep fighting and take the whole country is what they're basically faced with. And so they signed it. They go back home. The troops of the front line are told that the war is going to abruptly end. They're going to surrender all the ground that they've been given, give up all their weapons, and they're going to go home. And what was amazing to them was that the German army had not been defeated, not been semi-defeated the way it would be during the Second World War. What would happen was they would be in shock about the way this was going to happen because they had not been defeated. And so this would be the beginning of what would be known as the stab in the back theory, because Ludendorff and Hindenburg had already shifted responsibility onto the politicians, and this is the reason why we lost the war. And so they would go back to the belief that the war was lost not by the German troops at the front line losing to the French and the Allies, but by the politicians in the rear, particularly the leftists, the Social Democrats, and the Bolshevist Jews. Those were the beliefs on that particular situation. And so that would begin the animosity toward those individuals. And Erzenberger, who had actually come back from the delegation, he would be personally blamed for his hand on this. The Nazi Party would go on to label him and those who worked with him as the November traitors. And Erzenberger would be so harassed to where in 1921 he'd actually be assassinated. So that's the level of hatred they had in the matter. Meanwhile, the German people were just in a state of shock by the situation. They actually started rioting in cities all over Germany more than they already were, particularly in Berlin, saying, what about our 14 points? We didn't agree to this. We agreed to be dealt with fairly, but basically the Germans got dished a raw deal because the way things worked out. Their politicians were not in a position to negotiate, and the French and the Allies said, you need to do it or else. Another matter in this situation was another soldier who was in complete shock by this matter was Adolf Hitler, who was recovering in a hospital in eastern Germany at the time, which is now Poland. And what had happened was his regiment was subjugated to a gas attack earlier in October, and he was recovering out there. And when he had heard the word of the capitulation in beginning of November, he went back to his room, wrapped his head in his blanket around his head, and sobbed openly, only for the second time in his life. The first time being when his mother passed away in 1907. That particular point was the general attitude of many Germans. No one could believe what was happening. And that would give way for the extremist groups to come to power in Germany in time, blaming the Bolsheviks and blaming the Jews and blaming the Social Democrats for all the problems in Germany would stem off of what happened in this situation and what eventually would come a pass from the Treaty of Versailles a few months later. So there you go.